Let us talk about a clock. Welcome back to our channel. A clock, or a timepiece, is a device used to measure and indicate time. The clock is one of the oldest human inventions, meeting the need to measure intervals of time shorter than the natural units such as the day, the lunar month, and the year. Devices operating on several physical processes have been used over the millennia. Some predecessors to the modern clock may be considered clocks that are based on movement in nature. A sundial shows the time by displaying the position of a shadow on a flat surface. There is a range of duration timers, a well-known example being the hourglass. Water clocks, along with sundials, are possibly the oldest time-measuring instruments. A major advance occurred with the invention of the Verge escapement, which made possible the first mechanical clocks around 1300 in Europe, which kept time with oscillating timekeepers like balance wheels. Traditionally, in horology, the study of timekeeping, the term clock was used for a striking clock, while a clock that did not strike the hours audibly was called a timepiece. This distinction is no longer made. Watches and other timepieces that can be carried on one's person are usually not referred to as clocks. Spring-driven clocks appeared during the 15th century. During the 15th and 16th centuries, clockmaking flourished. The next development in accuracy occurred after 1656 with the invention of the pendulum clock by Christian Huygens. A major stimulus to improving the accuracy and reliability of clocks was the importance of precise timekeeping for navigation. The mechanism of a timepiece with a series of gears driven by a spring or weights is referred to as clockwork. The term is used by extension for a similar mechanism not used in a timepiece. The electric clock was patented in 1840, and electronic clocks were introduced in the 20th century, becoming widespread with the development of small battery-powered semiconductor devices. The timekeeping element in every modern clock is a harmonic oscillator, a physical object, resonator, that vibrates or oscillates at a particular frequency. This object can be a pendulum, a tuning fork, a quartz crystal, or the vibration of electrons in atoms as they emit microwaves, the last of which is so precise that it serves as the definition of the second. Clocks have different ways of displaying the time. Analog clocks indicate time with a traditional clock face and moving hands. Digital clocks display a numeric representation of time. Two numbering systems are in use, 12-hour time notation and 24-hour notation. Most digital clocks use electronic mechanisms and LCD, LED, or VFD displays. For the blind and for use over telephones, speaking clocks state the time audibly in words. There are also clocks for the blind that have displays that can be read by touch. This displays the count of seconds, minutes, hours, etc. in a human-readable form. The earliest mechanical clocks in the 13th century did not have a visual indicator and signaled the time audibly by striking bells. Many clocks to this day are striking clocks which strike the hour. Analog clocks display time with an analog clock face, which consists of a dial with the numbers 1 through 12 or 24, the hours in the day, around the outside. The hours are indicated with an hour hand, which makes 1 or 2 revolutions in a day, while the minutes are indicated by a minute hand, which makes 1 revolution per hour. In mechanical clocks a gear train drives the hands. In electronic clocks the circuit produces pulses every second which drive a stepper motor and gear train, which move the hands. Digital clocks display the time in periodically changing digits on a digital display. A common misconception is that a digital clock is more accurate than an analog wall clock, but the indicator type is separate and apart from the accuracy of the timing source. Talking clocks and the speaking clock services provided by telephone companies speak the time audibly, using either recorded or digitally synthesized voices. Clocks can be classified by the type of time display, as well as by the method of timekeeping. Analog clocks usually use a clock face which indicates time using rotating pointers called hands on a fixed numbered dial or dials. The standard clock face, known universally throughout the world, has a short hour hand which indicates the hour on a circular dial of 12 hours, making 2 revolutions per day, and a longer minute hand which indicates the minutes in the current hour on the same dial, which is also divided into 60 minutes. It may also have a second hand which indicates the seconds in the current minute. The only other widely used clock face today is the 24-hour analog dial, because of the use of 24-hour time in military organizations and timetables. Before the modern clock face was standardized during the Industrial Revolution, many other face designs were used throughout the years, including dials divided into 6, 8, 10, and 24 hours. During the French Revolution, the French government tried to introduce a 10-hour clock, as part of their decimal-based metric system of measurement, but it did not achieve widespread use. An Italian 6-hour clock was developed in the 18th century, presumably to save power. A clock or watch striking 24 times uses more power. Another type of analog clock is the sundial, which tracks the sun continuously, registering the time by the shadow position of its gnomon. Because the sun does not adjust to daylight saving time, users must add an hour during that time. Corrections must also be made for the equation of time, and for the difference between the longitudes of the sundial and of the central meridian of the time zone that is being used, i.e. 15 degrees east of the prime meridian for each hour that the time zone is ahead of GMT. Sundials use some or part of the 24-hour analog dial. There also exist clocks which use a digital display despite having an analog mechanism. These are commonly referred to as flip clocks. Alternative systems have been proposed. For example, the 12 clock indicates the current hour using one of 12 colors, and indicates the minute by showing a proportion of a circular disk, similar to a moon phase. Digital clocks display a numeric representation of time. Two numeric display formats are commonly used on digital clocks. The 24-hour notation with hours ranging 00, 23. The 12-hour notation with AM/PM indicator, with hours indicated as 12 AM, followed by 1 AM to 11 AM, followed by 12 PM, followed by 1 PM to 11 PM, a notation mostly used in domestic environments. Most digital clocks use electronic mechanisms and LCD, LED, or VFD displays. Many other display technologies are used as well, cathode ray tubes, Nixie tubes, etc. After a reset, battery change, or power failure, these clocks without a backup battery or capacitor either start counting from 12 o'clock, or stay at 12 o'clock, often with blinking digits indicating that the time needs to be set. Some newer clocks will reset themselves based on radio or internet time servers that are tuned to national atomic clocks. Since the introduction of digital clocks in the 1960s, there has been a notable decline in the use of analog clocks. Some clocks, called flip clocks, have digital displays that work mechanically. The digits are painted on sheets of material which are mounted like the pages of a book. Once a minute, a page is turned over to reveal the next digit. These displays are usually easier to read in brightly lit conditions than LCDs or LEDs. Also, they do not go back to 12 o'clock after a power interruption. Flip clocks generally do not have electronic mechanisms. Usually, they are driven by AC synchronous motors. Clocks with analog quadrants, with a digital component, usually minutes and hours displayed analogously and seconds displayed in digital mode. For convenience, distance, telephony, or blindness, auditory clocks present the time as sounds. The sound is either spoken natural language, e.g. the time is 12:35, or as auditory codes, e.g. number of sequential bell rings on the hour represents the number of the hour like the bell, Big Ben. Most telecommunication companies also provide a speaking clock service as well. Word clocks are clocks that display the time visually using sentences. E.g., it's about 3 o'clock. These clocks can be implemented in hardware or software. Some clocks, usually digital ones, include an optical projector that shines a magnified image of the time display onto a screen or onto a surface such as an indoor ceiling or wall. The digits are large enough to be easily read, without using glasses, by persons with moderately imperfect vision, so the clocks are convenient for use in their bedrooms. Usually, the timekeeping circuitry has a battery as a backup source for an uninterrupted power supply to keep the clock on time, while the projection light only works when the unit is connected to an AC supply. Completely battery-powered portable versions resembling flashlights are also available. Auditory and projection clocks can be used by people who are blind or have limited vision. There are also clocks for the blind that have displays that can be read by using the sense of touch. Some of these are similar to normal analog displays, but are constructed so the hands can be felt without damaging them. Another type is essentially digital, and uses devices that use a code such as Braille to show the digits so that they can be felt with the fingertips. Some clocks have several displays driven by a single mechanism, and some others have several completely separate mechanisms in a single case. Clocks in public places often have several faces visible from different directions, so that the clock can be read from anywhere in the vicinity. All the faces show the same time. Other clocks show the current time in several time zones. Watches that are intended to be carried by travelers often have two displays, one for the local time and the other for the time at home, which is useful for making pre-arranged phone calls. Some equation clocks have two displays, one showing mean time and the other solar time, as would be shown by a sundial. Some clocks have both analog and digital displays. Clocks with Braille displays usually also have conventional digits so they can be read by sighted people. Clocks are in homes, offices, and many other places. Smaller ones, watches, are carried on the wrist or in a pocket. Larger ones are in public places, e.g. a railway station or church. A small clock is often shown in a corner of computer displays, mobile phones and many MP3 players. The primary purpose of a clock is to display the time. Clocks may also have the facility to make a loud alert signal at a specified time, typically to waken a sleeper at a preset time. They are referred to as alarm clocks. The alarm may start at a low volume and become louder, or have the facility to be switched off for a few minutes then resume. Alarm clocks with visible indicators are sometimes used to indicate to children too young to read the time that the time for sleep has finished. They are sometimes called training clocks. A clock mechanism may be used to control a device according to time, e.g. a central heating system, a VCR, or a time bomb, see, digital counter. Such mechanisms are usually called timers. Clock mechanisms are also used to drive devices such as solar trackers and astronomical telescopes, which have to turn at accurately controlled speeds to counteract the rotation of the Earth. Most digital computers depend on an internal signal at constant frequency to synchronize processing. This is referred to as a clock signal. A few research projects are developing CPUs based on asynchronous circuits. Some equipment, including computers, also maintains time and date for use as required. This is referred to as time-of-day clock, and is distinct from the system clock signal, although possibly based on counting its cycles. For some scientific work, timing of the utmost accuracy is essential. It is also necessary to have a standard of the maximum accuracy against which working clocks can be calibrated. An ideal clock would give the time to unlimited accuracy, but this is not realizable. Many physical processes, in particular including some transitions between atomic energy levels, occur at exceedingly stable frequency. Counting cycles of such a process can give a very accurate and consistent time. Clocks which work this way are usually called atomic clocks. Such clocks are typically large, very expensive, require a controlled environment, and are far more accurate than required for most purposes. They are typically used in a standards laboratory. Until advances in the late 20th century, navigation depended on the ability to measure latitude and longitude. Latitude can be determined through celestial navigation. The measurement of longitude requires accurate knowledge of time. This need was a major motivation for the development of accurate mechanical clocks. John Harrison created the first highly accurate marine chronometer in the mid-18th century. The noon gun in Cape Town still fires an accurate signal to allow ships to check their chronometers. Many buildings near major ports used to have, some still do, a large ball mounted on a tower or mast arranged to drop at a predetermined time, for the same purpose. While satellite navigation systems such as GPS require unprecedentedly accurate knowledge of time, this is supplied by equipment on the satellites. Vehicles no longer need timekeeping equipment. Thank you for watching this video. Until here.